Hey guys, it's Navinad. Just doing a little bit of NL10 cash. So just a review of the game. Just played a session, but I wasn't narrating through it because a lot of times these guys just quit, and then you end up with like a 2-minute snippet. But this guy, this was kind of an interesting match. So I'm just gonna kind of walk through what I think was my thought process at the time and how I would be thinking through my decisions right now. So, we get 3-bet, we call, kind of to set mine, thinking that we'll peel some turns. Or, I'm sorry, peel some flops, but that was not a good board. Okay, so here's our King Jack offsuit. We're going to 3-bet this against just about everybody. We want to start out with a value merged 3-bet range and heads up matches. C-bet for value on the flop with top pair with a good kicker. And flush draws, straight draws, and things that would be in his range. Jack 5 offsuit's pretty close, but I'll open it and fold to a 3-bet most of the time. 9-8 offsuit's pretty standard as a call. Here we have no equity, and his range is just crushed by this. Plus, we will have better hands in our range, even on this board, to do something with, like Jack 10. 7-3 suited, sure. Yeah, I guess that's okay. We're going to c-bet this because it hits our range, and we have 3 to a straight, 3 to a flush, so we'll be able to barrel some cards, take some free cards off. The queen might look like a good or decent card to barrel. I think it's not, because he's not going to fold that much that he calls on the flop, and some of his draws became pair plus draw. And then when he puts in this bet on the river, I think, most of the time it's going to be an ace, a queen, and he's not definitely folding an ace. He may not fold a queen to a raise, and our line doesn't really make sense if we just try to come to life. We're hoping he bets and we can 3-bet, not the case, so whatever. King 7 suited is an open and call versus a 3-bet most of the time. And here we're going to 3-bet, get it in, or 3-bet 4, 3-bet 5-bet, get it in. Okay, now we can check. I think there's a lot of things we could do on this texture, but c-betting is pretty good because we have 2 overcards and a gut shot with a backdoor flush draw. We'll be able to barrel some turn cards, and check raising as pre-flop raiser seems like it actually would have been okay in that spot too. We raise, he 3-bets, we call. Yeah, we're going to float this in position because we expect he's going to check and fold on a lot of turns. And there's a lot of good things that can happen. We can hit a king or a queen and have showdown value, or we can bink a monster, or he can just check and fold on a brick. Here we have 10s, we're going to 3-bet. And then if he 4-bets, I think we probably call, given that he hasn't 4-bet much. Well, I don't think he's 4-bet at all. Super easy c-bet. Tons of cards we can barrel. Not one of them. We would check the 4 back. It wouldn't make sense to bet the 4. Now we pick up a 5, and he bets, and I think we should probably call because he's got enough busted draws in his range, and if he had a monster on the flop, I think he would probably have raised it. Like Chuck raised it on the flop, so he's going to have enough bluffs in his range there to make that a good call. Ace 10 offsuit I think is a value 3-bet. It's close. But I value 3-bet it. Yeah, we can c-bet here. We can check and call. We can check, hope he checks, and fold to a bet. It just kind of depends on our opponent. And here, I mean, the 4 is not a real good card to barrel. When he checks back, we can check and hope it goes to showdown and we win, or we can bet and try to take him off something like a 6. But yeah, I think mostly we just check, hope he checks back, and he's not going to have enough draws in his range or air to try to pick that off. We can check back, we can bet. Here we pick up a flush draw. I think we should bet this. We've got equity, we've got the ace high. He can call with a worse hand in the form of the king high draw like he did. And then when he checks the river, I think we can just check and hope that he had a draw and that we win. But he binked the 9 and we didn't, and that's fine. So, I think this is just kind of our standard thought process. We call here kind of set mine, not exactly set mining, hoping for a board we could peel. This is a board we could peel. Now we can bet or we can check back, and I think it depends on how he plays his draws. We don't know how he plays his draws exactly, so I think we just check back and we pick off this bet and we fold to this one. If we get to check back, good stuff. He bet the 9, and I think it was a good bet. It was a little thin, but betting seems okay. So the picture now that we kind of talked about, just my thought process, my standard thought process going into a match. Let's talk about our opponent and what kind of things we can figure out. So let's really pay attention to how often he does what, and see if we can come up with an exploitative strategy or exploitative approach, and how we want to construct our 3-bet ranges based on this specific opponent. He checks back. Let's see what happens when we bound the turn. He folds. So now, what does that do to his ranges? Well, I think it puts strength in his C-bets ranges. It means he's probably not checking back showdown value, and it means that when he checks back, we can bomb and get him to fold a lot of his air, or we can try to check raise him depending on our exact hand. Probably getting the right price. And if he's going to jam that river, I mean, it probably means we were getting the right price, because it could mean that even our pair cards would have been live. He could have had a draw, or he was bluffing, and if he was bluffing, pretty good chance if we binked the straight, he also would have jammed. So is he open raising everything? It looks like he's open raising a lot. So what does that mean? When he's open raising 80+% of his buttons, well, although he's using a bigger, usually 3 times the big blind open raise, that would naturally mean that we should be calling less often than we would against a min raise. I think the frequency in which he is betting means that we can actually call more often than if you were betting a slightly tighter range, and we can 3-bet more often. Our 3-bets are going to be very profitable. We missed a bet. And the 7-2 offsuit right here is an open, confirms that he is open raising everything. And if he's open raising 7-2 offsuit, what is he open folding, right? So we can start 3-bet, and I instantly looked for a spot to get 3-betted and realized my hand's just strong enough to call, so we just call. And he bets here. He's c-betting a lot, so I think we can float, or we could check raise. When he bets again, I kind of prefer now, in hindsight, if he turns over something mediocre here, then I would say that I'd actually prefer a check raise on the flop. But, he had a good hand, so can't really draw any conclusions from that. He's also not defending, he's not calling with any 2 cards against our min raise opens. He's not either calling or 3-betting all of the time, so we can bet a pretty wide range, and we can stick with that min raise sizing because we do have to be worried about a 3-bet from him, and because our min raises are folding out some of his range. The way that we want to play is we want to continue to use min raises because they are getting the job done some of the time, first of all, so we can get away with it. And also because he's 3-betting enough that we don't want to use a bigger raise size and then either have to fold to a 3-bet or not be able to flat call very wide and play a pot in position. So based on what I'm seeing here, it seems like Villain is getting pretty aggressive, and he's doing it, in good spots. At this point in the match, I was thinking about not reloading and just either writing it out or giving up, because I was starting to feel like maybe I was getting outplayed when he's like reading my range correctly and putting a lot of pressure when scare cards hit. And then I thought, I don't really have any reason to believe that. He could have just had it. So I did decide to reload, and we'll see how it goes. Okay, and here, I mean, we just kind of check back and hope he doesn't have some kind of weird diamond that he gets there with. But notice he had air, and he never took a stab at that run out. That's probably a good sign that I should be playing against this guy and trying to get my $16.95 back from him. Okay, good flop, but we're going to check call. And now we definitely want to bet this turn and take a note of what happens. And what happens is he checked that flop back that smashed his range, and then he folded to a turn lead. So now we can be pretty certain that when he checks a flop back, we've got the green light to bomb the turn with all of our air. And that should be pretty exploitative. So we've got one. So right now, our thoughts in the match should be min raise is definitely the right sizing. Open raising, not going crazy and open raising any two cards, but definitely open raising the majority. And being able and willing to flat call a good number of 3-bets. And the other thought, like just kind of sticking with our normal default strategy, but then also realizing our clearest path to victory right now, like the one place that it looks really easy to get an edge and exploit this guy is when he checks back a flop. He seems to be doing so very honestly, and I don't know if I've noticed it yet at this point in the match, but I know that it's here, like it's roundabout here. It starts to look like when he is checking the flop out of position, then checking the turn. He's also doing that very honestly. So what that means is we can actually start making delayed c-bets with our air. So we can check the flop back when we miss, and then if he checks the turn, we can go ahead and bet, and we can do that with our air. And when he is the pre-flop raiser, and he's in position, and he checks back the flop, we can bomb the turn with our air, and we should be able to print some money off of that. So everything else equal, if we don't find any other ways to exploit him, as long as we keep our game more or less breaking even in all the other spots, we've recognized a couple spots where we can make money, and heads up moves pretty quickly, so we should be able to make a pretty good chunk of money when he checks back a flop and we bomb the turn. Now on this particular flop here, Queen Jack 9, when we do have a 3-bet dynamic kind of going, it would make sense for him to check back and just give up if he has nothing, but we also saw him do it on Ace 2-3, which is not a spot we'd expect him to do it, so that's a pretty clear path to profit. Here is a spot where normally I might c-bet, but because this guy's been playing pretty honestly, I decide to check and see what he does, and if he checks back, I'm going to bet, and now that he calls, I think he's got draws, I think he's got queens, I think he's got tens, I don't think he's got an ace here, because I think he c-bets his aces here. So the question just becomes one of, do I make more money by checking and letting him bluff, or do I make more money by betting myself and getting looked up by a queen or a 10? And I think that it's close, but I'd have to use a smaller sizing to try to target his queens and tens than I get to use when I check and let him bet. And when I check and let him bet, I have the added benefit that he can bet like busted draws like he had and complete air. I don't have to rely on him just having a queen or a 10. And I also think he could have bet a queen or a 10 up to that point. So checking, trying to induce a bluff, and then picking it off seems like the way to get the most money in, good on average, and the best way to not have to fold a lot. He checks back, we're just going to bomb, he's just going to fold, and this is where we're getting our money. So we're trying to keep everything else, pretty stable, take a little edge here and there when we can, but he's got this just massive leak in his game. That one massive leak is enough for us to play, even if we're, breaking even or doing a little bit better than breaking even pre-flop. It's that once we get to the flop, now we've got a pretty big advantage. Because he's imbalanced. He's not betting enough air on the flop. He's not checking back enough showdown value on the flop. So what that means is he's not calling enough turns after he checks. So that gives us license to bet. We'll have a profitable bet on every turn after he checks the flop. And that's a lot. When you're going rapid fire, fast paced, you can make a lot of money in a short period of time. even at like a 5-10 level. I mean, well, it's a relative term. Okay, so he bets, and there's different ways we can play this. I think he could expect us to check raise our draws, and I think it's sneaky to every once in a while check and call with a draw. And I also think that once he checks the turn back, he's going to allow us to bluff a lot. So we expect he's going to c-bet one and done. So we can take our no showdown value draws and check call them out of position as kind of an out of position float withouts. And then if he bets again on the turn, we either do or don't have enough odds, or we hit or draw or we don't. But if he checks back on the turn, we can bomb the river, knowing that he's not barreling often enough. He's giving up. So he's shown this tendency to give up after he checks back. So that means that he's probably betting a little bit thin, too thin. He's like betting for protection, betting for information. He's not going to be... he doesn't understand showdown value. So when the board runs out in such a way where he doesn't have a piece of it, he's just well, basically, when he does have a piece of it, he's betting. And so when he checks, all that leaves is stuff where he doesn't have enough equity to fight for the pot. And I didn't really make the conscious effort to change my 3-bet sizing, although I think it's fine to just go 3 times the big blind. I think it was kind of a misclick, and then I decided to stick with it. Just recognizing that my post-flop advantage seems to be a bit, well, bigger than my pre-flop advantage, I chose to kind of start keeping the pots a little bit smaller. That's kind of an interesting hand if you back that up. I don't want to, like, slow down this match. But you might ask the question, like, go back and look at that hand and see if you can figure out why I did that. It's not a standard one. Okay, so we definitely are going to make a bet here, and I kind of got hung up trying to find the right sizing. I think pot sized is good. It's a textured flop. He's going to expect me to c-bet. He's going to have a lot of second best hands. He's never folding an overpair, and he might get cute and spaz out with some hands, so I think that was fine. Now we can just, I don't know why I would check raise this. I really like a check call here because I'm going to have a lot of turn cards that are really good to check and call again. Plus, when he checks back, I can make a very exploitative, small value bet because I think he's going to very rarely have like a 10. He's not balanced. Again, his checkbacks are not balanced. So when he checks back, his hand is very weak. So we can value bet small. And we can bluff. It's a little bit bigger, and we can really target specific parts of his range that could call us and give us good action with our value hands. And when we're in a spot where he just doesn't have any showdown value, we can go like 60% pot or even just bomb it with pot size bet. And it's going to be very hard for him to have a hand that can call. So we're just taking advantage of his imbalances. And now, I mean, here we are. We've got him back to $9.90 when he bought for 10. We sat him, he had $10, and we were about to give up. So we've already made all of our money back from him, and we have a very clear game plan. Once he calls here, I think a lot of his range is busted draws, and I think we should be checking. I'm not sure what I did in game. Good. And I want to see what he checked back with. If he does that with a queen, I've got to rethink my entire thought process. Not the case. Alright, I mean, we get it in as a flip, but he overbet jammed 8s, which kind of makes me feel at this point like he's tilting. Like maybe he's getting frustrated, and or maybe he just doesn't. He has like kind of a fear of flopping. He doesn't want to take flops with like medium pocket pairs. But heads up, man, those pocket 8s are money. And he almost turned him into a bluff. He turned a very valuable hand post flop into a pre flop hand that's like probably got something like 50% against my calling range. Yeah, I mean, maybe a little bit less than 50% against my calling range. I'm probably stacking 7s, and everything else I stack is going to be flipping or better. I'm going to have him crushed or flipping. Okay, now this is close, but I elect to check back, and I think that that's a good check back. Now, when he checks here, I feel like we're probably not going to be getting much value out, but if we use a smaller bet sizing, we might get a crying call from something like, you know, 7, 8, like ace 7 or 6, 9 of hearts. Yeah, sure, why not? But so, because he's shown this propensity to kind of check, give up, and to bet when he's got any kind of a decent piece, we wanted to use a smaller sizing for value. And also, I mean, every once in a while, I suppose we're going to just run into it when there's a king-high flop and we've got queens. So we don't want to, you know, value own ourselves and basically turn a decent hand into a bet that only gets called when we're behind. So still kind of using the information that he's got imbalances, that his check backs are imbalanced. He's not checking back near enough decent hands. He's not checking enough like marginal hands. He's not even checking. He's let alone checking like slow plays. He's just not checking enough like good showdown value that can, you know, comfortably call a good size bet on the next street. And using that information and literally just playing accordingly. Okay, now I think I would prefer to see a check back here, and we can make a delayed c-bet. When he checks here, we can just bet and just take this pot. And I think the club comes off, and that makes me kind of think it doesn't make sense that I'm repping a flush. Yeah, I mean, also my ace high is going to just be ahead of so much that checking back turn, checking back river seemed to make the most sense. Although, in hindsight, I maybe missed a bet on the turn. It's not clear to me right now that betting the turn was the right play. It was close. Pretty easy check call, and if he checks and then checks back, we're going to try to either check to induce a bluff or make a very tiny bet to try to like pull some value out of a worse 7 or like a pair of 3s, maybe an ace high that he can't release. That's a bet I would never have made against a player whose ranges I didn't understand and whose lines were balanced. But I was able to make a very thin value bet where at best I normally would be bluff catching. But I mean, I just feel like I've got a dead read on the kinds of hands he's going to have there, and I can go ahead and make that very exploitative thin value bet. And you know, like, it's perfectly good some of the time to check and call in a spot like that, but against this particular opponent, I was able to make a bet for thin value that under normal circumstances, and really with him in position, I'm not supposed to be able to make that bet. I'm supposed to check and hoping that he either checks back and I win at showdown, or if he does bet that he's bluffing and I can pick off that bluff with against a busted draw. But in that particular hand, he would have checked his hand back had I not bet, most likely, and he would have been able to go straight to showdown. But because I had a pretty good read on him, I was able to make that thin value bet. Really, this is a video I hope, if you're watching it and you're still in it at this point, that you have some questions, and you can put those questions in the comment section, and I'm going to try to answer them. And I may answer them just in a video, or I may reply to them in the comment section. But I want to answer them, and this should really get you thinking, if you're not already thinking about, you know, not just what does it mean about his check back range once we see him check the flop back and then fold to a turn bet, but what does it say about his betting range? You know, ranges are very interconnected in No Limit Hold'em, because anything you have in one range necessarily means that it is not in another range. So unless you're playing a mixed strategy and balancing very well, and it's hard to balance the mixed strategy. Mixed meaning sometimes we bet our flush draws, sometimes we check our flush draws. Or sometimes we bet our middle pairs, sometimes we check our middle pairs. And you should play a mixed strategy, I mean really, but most people don't, and it is hard to balance them. So once you understand that most people are not playing, they just think very standard things. They think that it is good to check raise draws out of position. So if I have a flush draw, I will check raise it. You know, and they just think it's just fundamentally one of the things that is good to do in No Limit Hold'em, so they do it. Or they think I should check, and if I get the right price to call, I should call. Or if I have a draw. Or they think like, okay, we're on the flop, I've got 2 cards to improve, I'm definitely going to call at least once, and then when the turn comes, if I don't hit, then I'll decide and make a decision then. Yeah, and here you see he's almost certainly spazzing out, getting a little bit goofy with his shoves, and he just ran into it. So here we are at 3460, and before we end this video, I would like to say I cut this off at 26 minutes and 7 seconds, but I kept playing, and he gave away another 2 buy-ins in like 10 minutes. So I invited him to check out the page, the YouTube channel, the PokerTube videos. This is probably the one that does it to him. Like, he overbets this, thinking he's range merging for value, and it looks very bluffy, and he runs into it, he gets irritated, and he blows off 2 more buy-ins in, like, you know, like I said, about 10 more minutes. So if you're watching, no offense, I don't mean it as an offensive thing. People have imbalances, but be aware of it, you know. And I did take some time to kind of explain things to him, like, hey, you know, it looks like you're kind of spazzing out a little bit. You started out playing pretty well, but now it looks like you're tilting. And I think I was at 65 or something like that, 65 bucks. And that's a lot, you know, that's a lot of buy-ins to just blow off, or a lot of buy-ins to win in a very short period of time, especially for as solid as the game started. So just some things to think about, and I'm going to get back to doing some of the coaching stuff and posting it up here. I've been doing a lot of coaching for people. I've got 3 different people that have been submitting stuff and asking questions, and I've been doing, you know, reviews with and that sort of thing. So for all 3 of you, I assume you're watching this. I haven't forgotten about any of you, and I will kind of get back to you one at a time. It doesn't look like the videos that I'm putting up of myself coaching another player are doing that well. Like, people don't seem to really be responding to them, really be watching them much. So I don't know if I'll put them back on YouTube, but I will get back to you. And maybe if I see some particularly interesting things or some spots that I think can help a lot of players out, I'll post them. But yeah, I think that's going to wrap it up. Until next time, guys. Navanad over and out, and good luck.